Ukraine at an intersection. One wrong decision could devastate their country. It's day 1395 of Russia's operation in Ukraine. Let's dive deeper. Today we have a lot of things to discuss. Ukraine is once again being influenced by Western countries, which could lead to very bad consequences. We will talk about that in detail, but first let's look at frontline changes. Starting from the Vavchansk front. It has been nearly a week since Russian forces pushed Ukrainian forces completely and took the entire city under their control. As we already know, the city is mostly in ruins because of the intense shelling suffered by the city from both sides. Now Russian forces have not stopped their offensive, they are in fact marching forward. Russian forces are attacking on this wide front. They have managed to capture nearly 70% of Vilcha, and these open fields south of the city. Russia's offensive on this front serves multiple purposes. First is to pin down Ukrainian forces, so they could not be transferred to a more needed front. As a result, it assists Russian forces. Second, it helps Russia in negotiation. They have many times expressed their willingness to give up occupied Kharkiv in exchange for Ukraine's withdrawal from the Donbass. We might not see all-out offensive on this front, unless Russia wants to apply pressure of some kind, because they themselves have to also commit resources, which could be needed elsewhere. Now moving to Kupyansk front. Russian forces' situation on the western Kupyansk is not looking good. In our last report, we saw how Ukrainian forces continue to recapture the city, after they gained massive area prior, as they cut Russia's supply to the city from the north. In the latest report, it was confirmed that most of the western Kupyansk have gone under Ukraine's control. Russian forces are currently holding these areas. However, as Ukrainian forces try to cut Russia's exit from the bridge, they will be forced to withdraw. In the recent footage we can see Ukrainian troops were struck near the bridge with Russian FPV drones. This suggests they are pushing hard to achieve this objective. Now moving to the Pokrovsk front. At the beginning of my last report, I told you that Ukrainian forces' resistance in Maryinka pocket is ending. As you know, encircled Ukrainian forces in the pocket made their last stand in Maryinka. However, since the last couple of days, the resistance was dispersed into small groups, which meant defense became weak. In the latest report, it was reported that apart from a few areas, most of the pocket is in gray zone, as Russian forces are clearing it. As the battle is coming to an end, there are still many Ukrainian sources claiming they still control the northern part of Pokrovsk, and Maryinka is not encircled. Now moving to Huliaipole front. Russian forces continue their offensive westward along the entire front line. In recent days, Russian forces managed to capture all the positions along the highway, while in the last 24 hours they managed to break through the main line of defense of Ukrainian forces, after crossing the river. Meanwhile, in the city itself, Ukraine's situation is worse. Russian forces managed to enter the city from two directions. However, from the north they have not yet crossed the river, so Ukraine could use it to hold Russians for a little longer. But from the south, they are losing the city quickly. Currently fights are taking place near the stadium. It's the same as Vavchansk. The more Ukraine loses territory in these two oblasts, the more they weaken their positions in the negotiation. Speaking of negotiation, in my last report I said, in the last meeting between the USA, Ukraine, and Europe, they agreed upon 90% of the peace agreement, and only 10% remained in question. However, those remaining 10% were the most important ones, which include issues like territory concession, that Ukraine is not willing to give up. However, after the negotiation, many of the European leaders are saying that now the ball is on the Russian side. To which couple of Russian officials have responded. To simply put it, they want the entire Donbass, and no NATO troops under any circumstance on Ukraine's territory is acceptable. In addition, they also signal that new sanctions against Russia could have a bad effect on the peace negotiation, that Europe is preparing if Russia does not accept the peace agreement. In addition, after the meeting, Europe is trying everything to confiscate frozen Russian assets and use that money to help Ukraine. Yesterday, the German Chancellor even posted on the X saying that they intend to use Russian assets to fund Ukraine for 2 more years. And to be frank, this statement is very scary in the way given the current situation of Ukrainian armed forces. As you can clearly see, they are having difficulty controlling more than one front, while experiencing shortage in manpower. And with each passing month it's only going to get worse, as they suffer losses. And in 2 years the entire country could be devastated. As many people have said previously, what is the point of holding a few kilometers if you lose your country's most valuable asset, your people? It seems like Ukraine is at an intersection, and they cannot afford to make the wrong decision. Subscribe for more frontline updates. Let me know your thoughts in the comments down below.